In the lead up to the release of The Acolyte, Disney was sparing no expense to try to hype this show up because this was supposed to be the future of Disney Star Wars. Never mind the Skywalker saga and the current era of Star Wars that we all come to know and love. Disney was using this as an opportunity to try to tell their own story where they're not shackled to any previously established material, so they can really just do whatever they want. This was, for the most part, based off of the New Republic series of books that they were putting out that no one read, but still, that was what they were banking their future on. And come to find out, audiences just weren't having it, as you can see from the Rotten Tomatoes score, where this was the lowest reviewed Disney Plus Star Wars show at that time, and probably for the foreseeable future. And now we're starting to learn why exactly they spent so much money in order to try to hype this up, because they spent a ton of money on trying to produce the show itself. It was previously thought of that they spent around $180 million to produce The Acolyte, and a lot of people are wondering, well, it certainly wasn't present on the screen because this show looked cheap as crap. And now it come to find out they spent even more than that too. We got this coming from That Park Place. This is what the headline says. Exclusive: Star Wars The Acolyte real cost exploded to $230 million according to new tax documents. And where did they get these tax documents? Well, when they produce stuff in the UK, they get certain tax breaks for actually producing things there. So Disney has to disclose how much they actually spent on there. But $230 million isn't necessarily all of it either, but this is the most that we actually have at this point. United Kingdom tax documents filed by the Walt Disney Company's UK branch revealed that Lucasfilm and the Walt Disney Company spent over 172 million Great British pounds, 231 million US dollars on the production of The Acolyte, a prequel series set in the Disney Star Wars universe. In the article, they provide a screen grab from that tax filing so you can see where they're getting this information from. But prior to all this, Leslie Headland said in an interview that they spent around $180 million to produce the show. So a lot of people were assuming that she was talking about dollars. Instead, according to this, around $180 million, which is what they say in the tax filings, would equate to around $230 million. It says they spent, what is it right here? 172 million Great British pounds, which according to the exchange rate at the time that the interview was made, it was $231 million. So that's why they're saying it's around $230 million that they spent on The Acolyte. And when people were assuming that it was US dollars that she was talking about, so $180 million in US for The Acolyte, people were still saying this is one of the greatest, if not greatest, losses for Disney Star Wars and Star Wars in general. But now it's looking like that could even be much worse than what we initially believed. With 8 episodes in the series, this meant that Lucasfilm under Kathleen Kennedy allowed the budget of the now canceled show to balloon to $28.75 million per episode. Also, while failing to attract an audience, not only did they fail to attract an audience, but the audience who showed up in the first couple episodes dipped out. I think they saw the losses were around 70% between the people who actually watched the first episode and actually completed the whole series. So things were not good. I mean, this was money really not well spent for them. UK tax filings for The Acolyte only account for what was spent on the series before September 24th, 2023. So it is possible that the figure might be adjusted as additional tax filings surface. The show was released in June 4, 2024 and failed to register on the Nielsen Top 10 overall chart. It does say that it did register in the Nielsen original streaming charts at 488 million minutes watched, but then it dropped off entirely in the 4th week, only resurging when the final episode came out at 335 million minutes watched. So not really good considering how much Disney actually spent on this series, which is why pretty much right after they premiered the last episode, they end up canceling the series altogether. And this is something that Disney does not like to do. They don't like to announce that they're canceling something, especially publicly like they did, because that's essentially them admitting failure, and they don't want to admit failure. They usually just rather just quietly push something into the back burner and then eventually just like quietly cancel it or announce like, oh yeah, that thing that we talked about in the past, we're not doing that anymore. We're going in a different direction. So when they come out and say, yeah, we're not renewing it for a second season just a couple weeks after the final episode, you know that this was a huge disaster for them. And just goes to show that the people running Lucasfilms, Kathleen Kennedy, Leslie Headland, the showrunner for this, clearly have no idea what the actual Star Wars fans want, because this show just marks that they have a complete disconnect between the weird Raylos that they see online versus the actual Star Wars fans who will show up to support their product. Kathleen Kennedy championed the Acolyte and Leslie Headland in a New York Times piece that obfuscated the astronomical spending Kennedy approved for the Star Wars flop. Kennedy said, "My belief is that storytelling does need to be representative of all people. That's an easy decision for me." And apparently they just chose to represent no one with this because, like I said, no one actually watched this, or not enough people watched this to justify the cost that they spent on it. She continued, "Operating within these giant franchises now with social media and the level of expectations, it's terrifying. I think Leslie has struggled a little bit with it. I think a lot of women who step into Star Wars struggle with this a bit more because of the fan base being so male dominated. They sometimes get attacked in ways that can be quite personal." And again, with this crap about how they're attacking her because she's a woman, not because of the fact that she made a terrible show that no one wanted. Because you look at Rings of Power over at Amazon, the showrunners of that are guys, but people are still attacking that, not because they don't think men have a space in there. It's because the show is just not that good. And that's the thing about the Acolyte with people attacking that. It's because they were so sure that this was what the fan base wanted, or at least that's the direction they were trying to take the fan base, and everyone just overwhelmingly rejected it. That's why we're getting so many people online trying to sign a petition. The few people who actually did show up to watch this, as you can clearly see, only around 80,000 people apparently actually like this show. But still, these are the people who did enjoy the Acolyte, because like I've said before, if you like the show, fine, you're allowed to like it. There's plenty of crappy shows and movies that I personally like. I'm not going to try to say that it's good or browbeat anyone who doesn't like him and call them an istanphobe because they didn't like it for whatever reason. You're allowed to like and not like whatever you want, but you just have to understand, if you like something that's not very popular, then you're in the minority on that one. But these people who really want to push the Acolyte, you got Kathleen Kennedy, these few fans, Leslie Headland. The reason why they're so upset about this show failing as badly as it did is because a lot of it was built around identity politics, and these people based their whole entire identity around a lot of this representation that they see in the show. So when this is not only rejected overwhelmingly by the audience, they view this as a personal attack on them, and that's not the case. All general audiences see is, this is a show, I gave it a chance, I didn't like the show, so I stopped watching it and it failed. But Disney, Kathleen Kennedy, Leslie Headland, they spent so much money on this because they really needed this one to succeed, because this is what they're basing their identity on. And now people overwhelmingly rejected it. So people over at Disney are starting to reconsider whether the direction they're taking Star Wars is actually the right one. We heard rumors going around this last week that the upcoming Rey movie will also be canceled. And this article from Screen Rant is trying to say that no, it's not delayed or canceled, but it's really a poor justification for why they're saying this. This is clearly them going for the defense of Disney and Lucasfilm. But ultimately, it just says, like, the reason it's not delayed or canceled is because we haven't been given a confirmed date on when they're supposed to actually release it. So technically, anytime they can push it back 10 years and they would say it's not technically delayed. But the fact of the matter is, Daisy Ridley said that there hasn't been a script for it, or she hasn't seen anything. The rumors going around is that the script has been reworked numerous times with numerous different writers, and they can't get something that works. And now one of the writers that they have working on it, the one who's supposed to be writing it right now, he left to do some other stuff right now that'll take away a large portion of his time. So it looks like over at Lucasfilm, they're trying to go in a different direction with Star Wars, and maybe they'll be sidelining Kathleen Kennedy. I don't think they're going to be getting rid of her entirely, because they couldn't publicly shame her like that. At most, what they'll do is just kind of let her contract expire. Then they'll give her a nice send off saying like, oh, she did a great job for us, but let's all applaud her as she chooses to go on to other things or something like that. That's probably what's going to happen. Maybe she's still running Lucasfilm though, because she knows where all the bodies are buried. So they can't really do anything with her right now because she's been in the industry for so long. So she probably has dirt on a lot of these executives at these companies. But right now it is pretty clear that the audience, regardless of whether Kathleen Kennedy is there or not, is not turning in for Star Wars, at least not the way they're currently running things, unless they actually try to go back to doing something that pleases the majority of the fan base instead of trying to cater to these weirdo Reylos. But let me know what you think about all this in the comment section below. Are you surprised that they spent this much money on the show, or do you think it might actually be more once we get additional tax filings coming out? Comment below, let me know. And if you haven't already, make sure you click that subscribe button if you want to stay up to date with the latest entertainment news. And don't forget to click that like button and share this video out there, because it really helps out with the channel. Thank you.